Many people say that science is the best way to discover the truth. And therefore, they say, I will not believe anything unless it can be scientifically proven. But, they continue, the existence of God and the truth of religion in general cannot be scientifically proved, and therefore I shall not believe in God or in any religion. Now, there seem to be two assumptions that underlie this reasoning. First, that there is no scientific proof for God, and second, that the best way to discover truth is through the scientific method. Now, let me say straight away that I think that first assumption is simply false. I think there are good reasons to believe in the existence of God and in the resurrection of Jesus. But I'm not going to examine that assumption here this morning. Rather, I want to look more closely with you today at that second assumption, that the best way to discover truth is through the scientific method. Now, this is a position called Scientism. And this attitude was characteristic of certain 19th century philosophers. For example, the philosopher W.K. Clifford held that it is irrational and even immoral to believe anything that is not proven by evidence. And in our own day, the philosopher Kai Nielsen states that the spectacular success of modern science in knowing the truth about the world implies that we should make science the model of all knowledge. Now, in effect, what these thinkers are proposing is a criterion of rationality. They are telling us that we should not believe anything unless it is self-evident, incorrigible, or scientifically proven. To believe anything that is not self-evident, incorrigible, or scientifically proven is to be irrational. Now, what do I mean by those three terms? Well, to say that a statement is self-evident is to say that once you understand the meaning of the terms in the statement, then the truth of the statement becomes evident to you. Once you grasp the meaning of the statement, it's obviously true. And very often truths of mathematics and logic are regarded as self-evident. Once you understand the meaning of the terms to and for and plus and equals, you see that 2 plus 2 equals 4, for example. By incorrigible truths, I mean truths about which you cannot be mistaken. These would typically be truths about immediate reports of your sense data or immediate reports of your feelings. For example, the statement, I feel pain, is a statement about which I cannot be mistaken, even if I'm only imagining my injury. Nevertheless, it's true that I feel pain. So that would be an incorrigible truth for me. It's a truth about which I cannot be mistaken. The third type of truth, scientifically proven truths, is more difficult to define, but I think we have a sort of rough and ready idea of what we mean by this, namely truths that are established by empirical evidence. And the claim here is that the rational person will only believe truths that are either self-evident, incorrigible, or scientifically proven. To believe anything else is to be irrational. Now, what can we say in response to this scientistic criterion of rationality? Well, philosophers of science and philosophers working in the theory of knowledge have shown this criterion to be hopelessly flawed as a criterion of rationality. Let me mention two problems with it. First of all, there are other types of truth than scientific truth. In other words, the criterion is too restrictive. It's very easy to show that there are truths which are not self-evident, incorrigible, or scientifically proven, but which we all accept and which we are entirely rational in so doing. Now, we could admit that the scientific method might be the best way to get at scientific truth or empirical truth. But it doesn't follow from this that that should be made the model for getting at all truth, because there are different kinds of truth than just scientific truth. I'm reminded in this connection of a story told by the late British philosopher Gilbert Ryle about a bursar, or a financial officer, at the University of Oxford, who claimed to know everything about the university. Now, we might say, well, that's ridiculous. What does this bursar know about Spinoza's Tractatus sitting on the shelf in the Bodleian Library? Or what does he know about the flowers in the garden at Magdalen College? Or what does he know about Professor Swinburne's lecture yesterday on the existence of God? And the bursar might reply to this, oh, I know all about these things, you know. I know exactly how much the university paid for Spinoza's Tractatus and how much it costs the Bodleian Library to house that book. Moreover, I know all about the flowers in the garden at Magdalen College. I know exactly how much it costs the university to pay for the gardener and for the seeds for those flowers. Moreover, I know all about Professor Swinburne's lecture on metaphysics yesterday. I know exactly how much it costs the university to pay Professor Swinburne, as well as for the heating and the facilities in which his lecture was held. I know all about these things, you know. Well, I think we would say this is ridiculous. The bursar knew something about everything at the university, but he only knew it from one aspect, namely the financial aspect. But he knew nothing about the truth of of Spinoza's ideas in the Tractatus. He knew nothing about the beauty of the flowers in the garden at Magdalen College. He knew nothing about the coherence of the ideas of Professor Swinburne's lecture on the existence of God. All he knew about was the financial aspect of all of these things. Now, in exactly the same way, we could theoretically admit that there is some scientific truth about everything in the world. And yet, that would only be one aspect or facet of the truth. It is very easy to show that there are other aspects of truth besides the scientific truth about things. Now, this should already be obvious in the case of self-evident and incorrigible truths. Self-evident truths of logic and mathematics cannot be proved scientifically because science presupposes logic and mathematics. Similarly, incorrigible truths cannot be proved scientifically, for these are private reports of one's own sensations. So it's already evident from self-evident and incorrigible truths that there are other kinds of truth than scientifically provable truth. But there are other areas as well. First of all, ethics. Ethics. From a scientific description of the world, we can make no inference whatsoever about right and wrong, about good and evil, about statements of value. This is the old distinction between what is and what ought to be the case. Science can give us a description of what is the case, but science can make no prescriptive statements about what ought to be the case. Now, this has shattering implications for science. For the entire scientific enterprise is based upon the assumption that one's scientific research and one's results are carried out and reported honestly.